Well, after being rained on last week and blown all over Polperro, I thought I'd take the easy way out, and that's to stay in the studio this week. So, here we are. Now, one of the biggest problems with working in the studio or indoors is, of course, that what do we draw? What's the subject? Well, one of the ways that we can get over this, of course, is to copy from photographs. But it isn't really copy. That's the wrong word. We've got to use a photograph as a guide, not to copy from. Let me show you. Now, this particular photograph I'm going to show you is in one of my books, and it talks about photographs. But this one here, it's a photograph of the Eiffel Tower, and it's very dark to start with, so I couldn't get much detail out of it, even if I wanted. At the same time, photographs take the middle distance down, and if you copy that, it always looks as though it's squashed. The eye sees a lot more because the eye takes you to the spot that you want to paint. Now, if you look at the picture that I've actually painted over here, what I've done, I've simplified the photograph, in other words, used it as a guide. I've exaggerated this middle distance, brought it up a bit, and in fact, I've put the sun on it. You see, when I took the photograph, it had been raining, and that was the atmosphere, it was all wet. And the sun came out, and this is where I caught it over the buildings in the middle distance. Also, what I did was to add the figures further down in the picture, and we got then the reflections, and this gave the atmosphere of being wet. But you can see, and the sky as well, of course, because the sky is all sort of billowing and dirty in the background where the rain was, or where the rain has gone. So it's very free, and really, you can't say that is a copy of the photograph. The photograph has been used as a guide. So whatever happens, when you use a photograph as a guide, not something to copy from. Bring your own feeling and your own character into the painting. But at least what it does is give you something to start a painting from. But there's one thing that photographs can help you with, and that is to show you the shape of things. I mean, take this tree, for instance. It's showing us how branches come out of the large branch or the trunk, and how they get smaller all the way to the top. And whatever you photograph like that, it is teaching you the shape and the shapes of different objects. That's very important, so you can learn from it. But really, when you're doing a full painting, don't copy the photograph, use it as a guide, as I said. But above all, try to get outside to paint from real life as much as you can. Another subject, of course, that we can paint indoors, and that's still life. Here's one I prepared earlier. Sounds like a cookery program, doesn't it? But at the moment, it hasn't got any light on it. There's no light at all, and if I switch this on, we've got light. Now, if I hold it above, for instance, there's no shadows, and this is really what we're looking for. No shadows at all. If I come down, we've got light over here. We've got a shadow coming in behind. Now, I want the shadow, from my view, to be behind the teapot. That's further over. Now, that's looking good. I can make the shadow taller by coming lower down. In fact, I reckon that's where we have it. Let's just get it sort of... That's it. That's nice and dark there. Yeah, now, that, to me, has given light and shade and depth to the still life. So I'm happy with that. But before we go any further with the still life, there's just a couple of things I'd like to show you with shadows, because shadows, painting shadows that is, can be very tricky. Let's have a look. Now, I've already painted 3 boxes. Now, these boxes, they're just one wash of one colour, and that's it. But we want to show form on the boxes. So the way we do it, of course, is to show shadow or put shadow on. Now, with watercolour, some people are very concerned at what colour do we paint a shadow. If we're on red, is it a different colour to if we're on yellow or on green? Well, let's say we've got a rule of thumb with watercolour, and then through your experience, you'll build on this. And the rule of thumb is that if you mix ultramarine and crimson with a little bit of cadmium, not cadmium, a little bit of yellow ochre, and make a wash, a colour, that's the colour there. Now, that colour is a straightforward colour mixed from the three primaries. Now, I can paint over here just over the whole area with just one colour, and it appears as though we've got a shadow side to our box. Now, I'm going to use the same colour and paint over this box. Now, because watercolour is transparent, you can see that it appears a different colour to this shadow. And that's simply because, being transparent, we're showing the colour that's underneath. And so it's the same colour, but we've cast a different shadow or a shadow on a different colour. Let's go down to the green. We do the same thing again. And already you can see that we've got form because of this shadow. But at the same time, we've got another wash to put on this side of the box because the light is over to our left and the light is coming down and hitting the top, which is bright. It's hitting this side a little bit, which is in shadow, but this side over here is darker still. So what we've got to do is, when this is painted, we then put on another wash. Never, ever put on a wash on top of a wet one. In other words, let it dry first before you apply another wash. Now, I think that's dry. Yeah. Now, with the same colour, remember this is the same colour, the same wash, I'm now going to put a shadow over this side. Now, already, we've got a box, haven't we? We've got 3 dimensions because we've got 3 surfaces, 3 different tones. And it's all done with the shadow. But remember, what has done this is the same colour shadow for 3 different coloured boxes. And that just shows you when you're working on a watercolour, you can start with this colour, and wherever you've got shadows, let them go over different areas, different colours, different forms on your painting, and it should look like a shadow that's been cast. Right, before we start on the still life, let me just show you my shoulder bag that I've been carrying around that you've seen in this series. Well, it isn't my shoulder bag, actually. What it is, it's my painting kit that I carry around with me, ideal for taking outside. Now, there's a water holder over here. That holds the water when you're working. Carry the water in the bottle here. We've got paints, all the paints I use, and bags of mixing area. Also, I've got my brushes and a watercolour sketchbook on the lid. So I can use this anywhere I like to paint with. And the beauty of it is, it's got this strap, which of course goes around your shoulder, but when you're painting, if you put it around your neck, it holds the weight, keeps the tray level, and you can actually work anywhere, standing up or sitting down. And that's what I take out with me. Now, back to the still life. I've done the drawing. Now, with drawing, I don't want you to worry whether or not it's going to show through the watercolour painting at the end. It's all part of it. If you look at this, the quite a bit of structure within this drawing. I haven't gone very pale. I've let the pencil go in a normal weight so that I've been able to feel the drawing around and really put some feeling into it. So never worry about drawing showing through the painting. Start as usual over on the right-hand side, left-hand side of your painting. Bags of water so that the paint is really flowing down. Now, these little areas of white that are left, leave them. This is all part of the painting. Don't go over the handle of the jug. We need that to be left white, and miss the fruit at the back. Just have a look now. is fine through there, and we carry on. Now, this is very similar to putting on a wash like we talked about in another program. The difference is the brush is moving around a bit more this time and sort of scrubbing like that, but it isn't scrubbing dry. There's bags of water in it. It's all sort of flowing down nice. Now, the green, looking at the green, it may be a little bit warm. Just take those out. Maybe a little bit warm, and the real green is a bit cooler than this, but it doesn't matter. You haven't got to mix exact colours. It's got to look right on the painting, but don't mix exact colours. You'll be trying forever. Now, the one in the background is even darker still. If you splash your paint, you might have seen it splashed there. If you do splash, it doesn't matter. It's all part of watercolour painting. It doesn't worry it. Let's put our highlight in. There. The highlight must follow the shape of the curve of the object. So the plum has got, it's curved, and we've got a curved highlight on it. Must watch for highlights, or otherwise I can't get them in. We come down here. There's a highlight up. There's one. Beauty. Right on there. So I must remember that one there. That will show up more when I put the blue drawing work that's on there, the painting. Let's bring that down to there. Then we're still shadow under here. There's a gorgeous proper cast shadow on the bottom of this spout. It really is nice. So that will be shown later when this is dried. And I want to make sure that I do leave enough light. Now, there's a highlight down there. Comes around the corner. Don't want any more than that. Look, bags of water. Look how it's all lovely and wet. Isn't that gorgeous? All running down. That might be a weeny bit wet because it might take quite a while to dry. I'm just taking that out a little bit. Although, doesn't it look nice when you get that dark area where the water sort of settles and holds there? Oh, that's watercolour painting. And it's much yellower, and of course it's much lighter than the background, but the background still hasn't got its dark shadows on yet. So I'm sort of painting this odd, really, because it isn't dark enough. Let's start to darken under here. I'll just add a bit of dark into it. Not much, just a little suggestion. And that will help a bit more there, actually. Down into there. Let's have a look. Yeah, that will do. There's a highlight at the top, and it's dark where it goes into where the stalk goes, so I just want to add that in, dark there, and then just add a little bit more, whoops, hair on the brush, add a little bit more up there. That's it. Now, the next one, and notice you can mix the colours while they're wet. And you can paint while it's all highlight. Nearly forgot that, chatting away. There we are, put the highlight in. And you can mix the colours on here while it's wet. But as soon as it starts to dry, remember, there's no way that you can carry on. See, it doesn't matter, just leaving that white edge. That's lovely, because that white edge actually helps us to go round. It's just that little light, which is nice. Now, the banana, half closing my eyes, gets darker underneath, but I shall put that on when it's dry. I might add a little bit there at the moment. We'll just have a look when we get this in. I might just put a little, let's just put a fraction of dark in there, just a little bit underneath. It's still wet, so I'm okay. Just helps to give it a tone, but we will, in fact, put more shadow underneath it as we go on. When it dries. This is darker underneath anyway, of course, because that's in shadow all under there. Now, notice what I'm doing. I'm following the shape or the plane of the banana. In other words, the banana is at that angle. So I'm painting these at the same angle because naturally they're in perspective, although they're only very small things. Bring our dark into there and just leave that for the time being. We've got, as it goes into a line there, comes round there, and we've got a funny sort of smudge of it up here, down to here. Got the dark on the end, which is going to be much darker, of course. Then this one comes around. You see, this doesn't mean anything now, that where we run into the banana from the grapes. It's all part of it. Round there into the dark. And we'll just suggest one or two more little marks on there. And underneath, now this time they're running that way. We'll put another shadow on this when we've got these in and they're dry. That's the beauty when you're working like this, you see. You're talking to yourself. I mean, I'm talking out loud, of course, for you. But when you're working, do talk to yourself and plan your way through as you're working. We're dark around there. And I'll tell you what, I think I might even put that in at the moment and see what happens. I can always go over and do it darker afterwards. It sort of goes over there and then disappears down. I think I'll go into that. That's rather nice because it often helps to get some reflected colour into it. Then let's bring out one or two of these creases. I've just taken some of the water out of or the paint out of the brush to take that one along. Now the decoration on the coffee pot. Before we start, let me just explain that if you paint the exact replica onto your piece of paper here, then it's going to look so detailed that the rest of the picture will be out with it. It won't flow along with it. So you must paint it very freely to start with and loose. Don't try to paint it exact, whatever you do. We'll start at the top, and we've got a funny sort of, it's almost a leaf shape, but all I'm doing, remember, is suggesting it and looking at it to see what happens. The top has got a couple of leaves coming down there. There's a bit running down onto the shadow side. Then we've got a sort of scroll thing around here. That goes actually round the corner of the coffee pot. And we've got a tree, goes down there. It looks like a tree. Comes out here. Remember, as I say, you're doing all this to yourself. And when you talk to yourself, if you don't mind doing that, that is. When you talk to yourself, you do move quicker than when you're talking out loud. Let's put this in. So, and as I say, it does help on something like this to work reasonably quick. And don't try to be very equal with it because the shadow isn't. It's on material, remember. Just let it go as it falls. Now, this is important here, coming down into here. We mustn't go over the edge because we've got to give that nice edge to the spout. Keep it going, keep it wet, whatever happens, don't let it dry. And just keep moving. Plenty of water all the time. I like that dry brush edge there, that's nice. Leave a dry brush edge if it happens. We're all over around here. Now this is where I've left that crisp edge on there. There's the apple stalk down into there, where it's all dark, around there. Now I must be quick because otherwise this is going to dry. That's it, into there. That's lovely. And we've got, actually, I mustn't forget the top up there. Now this is showing that we've got a flat surface that we've got our still life on, and at the same time we've got the material folding over the edge. So it gives us two different planes. And I'm just adding a little bit of different colour as I work on this one. Added a bit more yellow ochre and then a bit more blue, just to change it because it's nearer to us. And while it's nearer to us, it's warmer, and of course, we may as well put a little bit more warmth into the colour. Remember that warm colours come towards us and cool colours recede. What I will do, I'll just soften that edge a bit there. That's it. We've got quite a dark area in the top of the spout, but make sure that you leave a white edge on the back so that it's white or light against dark where it goes against the shadow. Let me have a look just up there where it's dark as it goes around the corner. And that, let's just take it off like that. That's fine. I've left a crisp edge there. Now, it isn't crisp on the painting, but it looks nice, that crisp edge. So I'll leave that. Now, the front face of this has got a slight shadow on because this is flat and that goes round. This goes round here, and then it comes flat in here, and it's just got a slight tone on it. So I'll put one on there. I've got to see where it goes. It goes from here because it's got highlights higher up. Well, I've had a look at it after I've given it a break, and I have done certain things. I'll show you what I've done. I've done this plum here. Simple thing, very simple, but I've just put that end to the plum in, and it just gives dimension to that, because that tells us that it's an end. It's very important, that little bit. I've put this dark shadow in here because it helps the jug and helps to hold these bananas and push it forward a little bit, push the bananas forward a little bit. Remember, light against dark all the time. I've added a little bit of dark around here, a bit more dark into the spout of the coffee pot. I think that's about it. But there's just a couple of things I've got to do. I've still got to paint in these stalks on the apple, well, in fact, on both apples. So here we go. I've just mixed a little watery colour, and let's have a look at them. I don't want to do it too dark. That's it. Because if I do, it's going to kill it against this light background. But it does go a little bit darker as it drops into there. So while it's still wet, I can do that. And while it's still wet, I can do that. Now, while I've got the paint on the brush, I'm going into the grape because, not the grape, plum. It's what you get when you nearly finish a painting. You get all excited about it. Into here, and that goes like that. That looks nice, that. Now, that was a very free movement, but it's got the shape, and it's just right. Now, I'm happy with that. Why don't you have a go? It's easier than you think. See you next week.
Alwyn Crawshaw has written A Brush with Art. This 95-page book is lavishly illustrated in full color. Each of the 12 sections in the book is a self-contained lesson featuring a different location